So in our last class, what we had seen, we had just created one Linux machine, Linux virtual machine, and we saw how we can connect to that machine, right? And I had just shown you the overview of the machine, how you'll connect it, and how you'll create and connect it. But the thing is, there are lots of other things to set up and to get more ideas on that while creating the server. All these things today, I'll just explain you in detail so that you'll understand deeply and deeply whenever you have any requirement comes, you have to start working and give suggestions or to your company or to your project manager or whatever, right? So let's start. So I'll just go ahead and from the dashboard, I could see I have only one instance created. Okay, now let's go ahead and click on this launch instance. Okay, the same thing I'll do today also. I'll just go with same Linux server, but I will explain all the details, whatever we had selected, and we'll talk about more about the security groups and all. Okay, so before jumping to the security group, I'll tell you something else which is related to the block storage and the volume. And I'll just explain you how it is important to understand each concept about the block storage and the volume and how you manage it. Okay, now quickly go ahead and just give a name as demo server. Okay, and the image, how to select the image. So this time in our last class, I had selected Amazon Linux, right? Now let me search, let me create one Ubuntu machine. Okay, for Ubuntu, you have to select the Ubuntu here. Okay, or else what you can do, you can just in the search button here, you can just click here and type Ubuntu and it will display all these things. So okay, so before moving that, so what is AMI? That definitely, Ajay Fraser, you might get questions from the interview as what is AMI? Amazon Machine Image. So what is that image actually?
It's like a screenshot.
Yeah,
it's kind of OS.
It's okay. It's a little bit it's correlated, but see,
it consists of CPU, RAM, and all those things. OS here.
Not RAM. It's not RAM. It does not contains any RAM and all, because the RAM and the memory and the storage, the processor, everything is part of instance type. Instance type. So what is the AMI contents? Here it is written, AMI is a template, or you can say configuration file, which contains the software configurations, including system, application server, or applications, whatever you need to run, or whatever software libraries or binaries you want to combine together and make a package. And that is nothing but your image. Okay. So it contains, so what is Amazon Machine Image or AMI? It contains the operating systems and the required software or applications to run. Okay. And the RAM, like the memory, the storage, and the processors, all these details are part of the instance types. So first, what we have to do whenever we create, we have to select the operating system first. Suppose I selected Ubuntu operating system, that image, and that image consists of what? This is the details about this image, AMI ID. It has the AMI ID. Remember, this AMI ID is the unique ID which will represent the particular image, which we will get help of this image ID, and we use more this image ID in automations. Okay, when we learn in DevOps or some other automations, if you're going to do cloud automations, that time this image ID is most important, and you have to you don't have to necessarily remember this. You can get it. I'll show you how we can get this image ID also, right? So if you see here, I have selected this AMI, right? Canonical Ubuntu 22. 20.04 version, and it is falls under free tier. If you want to get a lower version, you can select it here. We have Ubuntu server, right? 20.04 LTS as VMSST volume type. Again, these two falls under free tier. So whatever you want, you can just choose it. Suppose I'll go with 20 version 20. Okay, so here once it get refreshed, okay, so here it also refreshed to 20. Just read more. What happens here? Nothing is giving more details about this. Okay, leave it. Now you get all this Ubuntu server 20.04, and here the architecture, the procedure, what processor ID, what architecture you want. You want to go for 64-bit of architecture. You have to select it. Okay, and this is verified provider. Okay, so whenever you go with the image selection, these images are the inbuilt or pre-defined images which Amazon provides, us. But most of the times in the real time, guys, you don't have to work on the Amazon provided images. How you have to work? You have to work on your own image. You have to work on your own image. So we have a separate class on the image creations and how we'll work on the images and everything. That time I'll explain you how that images can be created and how you can store these images and you can use it in your project. I'll show you in detail. Okay, we have a separate class for this. Fine. Let me quickly...
why do we need to create own images when already pre-existing there, right?
Okay, that's a good question. So when you go for a predefined anything, not only image, any predefined software or predefined tools or predefined image, so what you will get from that, whatever is given, whatever is been available in that template, only you have to use it, right? If you need beyond that, if you need more functionality to be added, right? So what do you have to do?
Like for example?
For example, suppose you have that Ubuntu server, and suppose you have one Ubuntu server, and on top of that server, you have to install one software. Suppose any kind of Java you have installed, or you have installed some binaries or libraries for your program or for your software, and you have deployed your application. You have installed some few applications there, deployed few applications, right? And you need the total package to be there. So in that case, the predefined things will not help you, right? Even though you go for the predefined, you have to install the required libraries, binaries for you based on your requirement, right? So in real time, so when we work, we get the base image. We'll have all these details in going forward in our classes. So the base image, which will be nothing simple, plain image or plain operating system. On top of that, we have to put all our requirement. We have to install those particular servers, particular libraries, binaries, applications, extra softwares, whatever is required. Any drivers if you want. And that predefined will not have those things, right?
Okay.
Yeah. So even when we choose that one also, what will happen? You need some specific version of those applications to be there, specific versions of driver, specific versions of libraries, right?
Right.
So those details you have to put together in one image, bundle it, and create that image. And that image, which will be user defined, like which you created or your company created, that image will be circulated and distributed among within your organization so that they can create based on your requirement or project requirement. They have to create the machine out of that.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah. Now this is how, and don't worry, we have a complete lab class on the image creations. Okay, full lab class also. Now I'm just going overview, and that's why EC2 instances will take at least 5 to 6 class to complete the details. So there are lots of things to know on this computing power. Okay. Now the instance type, which we are talking about, the RAM, the memory, the like storage, the processor, and all these things, right? And you have to select the free tier, as I said, for your practice and demo, for your learning purposes. There are, if you want, there are many other. So how can anybody tell how we have to select or choose the instance type?
Based on our requirement.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. So based on your requirement, so the requirement, what type of requirement? Like, so how you have to decide, or how you have to find a appropriate instance type. So based on a requirement, suppose your requirement is having your application. So how you have to calculate it? As a solution architect, first you have to analyze the requirement, right? Requirement analysis. So based on the requirement analysis, you have to provision the system. You have to provision a server. So your application suppose require your whenever you're doing software analysis or requirement analysis, as per the requirement, your software suppose required more than 20 GB of RAM to be there, and it is required minimum of 4 virtual CPUs or 8 virtual CPUs. So then what you have to do, you have to go to the instance type and select which is having more than 20 GB of memory. So here 16 GB, 32 GB, right? So either we can go with 32 GB, 16 GB, and what else? 32 GB. Okay. Then more than 20 GB we need. Suppose you have to go for 32 GB, and we need what? More than 4 virtual CPUs. So here it has 8 virtual CPUs. And if you go this one, then it does not fall under more than 20 GB, right? It is less than 20 GB. So it should go with T2.2 extra large. Again, as I had shown you before, you have to select based on, again, requirement, what is the main purpose or main requirement. Whether do you need your application is something like more compute resources do you need, or more storage resources, or more network bandwidth. Based on that, you have to select the instance type. Is it clear, guys? With respect to the solution architect, you have to think with all aspects. Okay. So once you select, see, whatever I'm just teaching you, training you, is all related to free tier for your learning purposes. But along with, I'm also giving the real-time examples also. Okay. So just consider, for experienced people, you have to always always think about the real time, how it works. Okay. So we can see here, we selected the instance type T2 micro. Then let's move on to the key pair. So last time I just showed you how to create a key pair, right? So I had created this one, big day demo. So select it. I'm not going to show you again because in our last class I had shown you how to create new pair. It's very simple. To give a name and select the RSA type and certificate details and then create it, right? Now, this network settings, right? The VPC, we have a separate 3 days of classes, 3 to 4 days of classes on VPC alone, VPC subnet and public IP. Leave it for now. And I was talking about this security group to explain you today. So what is a security group? So first of all, tell me, what is a firewall? You might have heard about this term firewall in your networking concept or in your any course curriculum or anywhere, firewall. So what is this? It is actually security. It's a type of security. It's type of security being provided. Yeah, someone was telling, yes.
Is give entry and exit to web servers as a port.
Yeah, that is for security group. Yes, that means it is actually a firewall, means it is a secure barrier for the outsider to attack or to come or connect or handle your servers. So how you want your servers to be visible or accessible over the internet to the outside world. So it is kind of the setup you have to do to make sure unwanted connections cannot be made to your server by using this security group. So here the security group concept is imagined web services like in AWS, but in other cloud service provider, there might be a different name. So what is a security group? It is a set of firewall rules that control the traffic of your instance and rules to allow specific traffic to reach your instance. So if you want to understand more about the firewall, okay, just search for firewall in computer network. Okay, firewall in computer network. So a firewall is a network security device that monitors and filters incoming and outgoing network traffic based on an organization previously established security policies. So you have to set up a security policy. You have to set up a security policy. So suppose if I just go here and we'll have this diagram here. It doesn't have the diagram. Okay, so let me just go some images we'll find and I'll just explain. Yeah, and think about this image. Okay, so if you see this image particularly, right, what we can see here, we have these firewalls given here, and we have the internet connections to your servers, and we have all the firewalls and security in between, so that whatever connections comes from the internet, from the outside world, being filtered it out, and those are authenticated, or those are having access can able to connect to the servers. So it's kind of security barrier in between the outside world to your servers. Okay, so the security group, what is the security group? Is a set of firewall rules. So the firewall is a security policies, right? It contains the security policies, how you want your servers to be connected from the outside world. So the security group is a set of firewall rules that control the traffic for your instance. So instance is nothing but your virtual machine. And rules to allow specific traffic to reach your instances. So we can go ahead and create a security group. Okay, now last class, I just created a simple security group, but let me just give a name, I think. Okay, let's select the existing security group. I created the security group with a name like Weekdays Demo SC, like let's select. And if you see here, when I select the security group here, right? This week demo SC. Now what happens? Let me go and show you about this security group. So if I go in this section here below, in this EC2 sections, right, EC2 dashboard, you can see we have this security group option available here. Okay, in this security group, if I just click it here, I have 9 security groups available. I have created 9 firewall policies or firewall rules. Now, if I select any one of them, what is this? I had created this weekday demo SZ. Just click on this one. Once you click, you'll find the rules being set up here. We have the security group name, the security group ID, and all descriptions and all. So we have few rules, inbound rules and outbound rules. So what is this inbound rules? How you want the connections to come into the server, like so from outside to connecting to the server. What are the ports you want to whitelist or giving access to connect? Outbound means from the server, whatever you have created to go outside world. Inbound from out to from inbound. Outbound is to outside world. So you can see here in inbound rule, we have this one particular port range, port number 22, and this type SSH. Okay, and here it is connected port number 22 alone. Only inbound means, so only people who are connecting to the server using this port number 22 can alone connect to the server using this protocol SSH. Okay, now leave it. When I just go ahead and create, I'll show you a demo completely on after this creation, I'll show you the demo. Okay, now I selected, suppose weekday demo SC, and the storage will have the class will have, I'll just explain you after this. Okay, now let's go ahead and create launch instance. So what is doing? It's just going and just, it's what it says, successfully initiated the launch of instances. Let's go ahead and see here. The status is pending. Okay. Just wait for a few seconds. Let it be start running. Then I'll just. Good. It started running. If I just click on this, and we'll see here lots of details. Let me explain you all these details. In our last class, I had not explained. I had just shown you how to connect and all. So here you will get what the details you'll get. You will get the instance ID. This is the unique instance ID. Okay, alphanumeric instance ID, you will get it. And the public IP. The public IP, this was given auto-assigned public IP. That means based on the CIDR range, based on the subnet selected, it will automatically assign one public IP. We have a complete network class on the VPC, public IP, and subnets and all. 3 to 4 days of classes. That time I'll explain you each bit of this networking stuff. Okay. So this I'll tell you something now, which very important to understand this public IP, about this public IP. And we can see here we have this private IP addresses. Let me tell you two things about this private IP and public IP. So whenever we create the instance, the private IP will be static. It will never change. Like when you stop or start the server, the private IP will be the same. So once it is created, it is assigned the same static IP, same IP. But the public IP is auto-assigned and it dynamically changes based on the server you stop and start. So it is currently running. Okay, it is currently running. So we have this IP address. Sorry, I just refreshed it. So we have this IP addresses. We have this public IP address. If I stop and start again, it will get changed to another IP address. So that could be a question also. They might ask you trickily, what will happen if you stop running server or running EC2 instances and start it again? What will happen to the IP? So you can say the public IP will get changed. This public IP will get changed. Then how we can mitigate this problem? How we can overcome this problem? We don't want this public IP to be changed. There are lots of things to discuss on this server wise. Okay, once we move on, will just come to know. I don't want to give you all the details in one day so that nothing will come to your mind, into your mind. So these public IP addresses will get changed when we stop and start the servers. The first thing, okay. So how we can mitigate this problem? How we can overcome or come out of this problem? Because we want the IP address to be same as long as our server is active or our server is alive or available. So by using the elastic IP, okay, by using the elastic IP. Elastic IP is a static IP being provided by EC2 instance by Amazon, by AWS, which you can use the elastic IP to make it. Even though you stop or start the server, the IP will never get changed. That is the solution for that. We use the elastic IP. So you'll say there are lots of, again, things with respect to the elastic IP. I don't want to change the path towards now that side. Okay, when we talk about the networking, we'll talk about the elastic IP. Good. Now we got all this host name, private DNS, right? And AMI name, right? AMI ID, which AMI is used to create the server, AMI details, okay? When it was launched, what is the AMI location where it is available, right? So stop, protection, disable, that I'll explain you later. What is the key pair used to connect? Sometimes you'll forget which key pair was used to create the server, or which key pair was assigned. So you have to come here and check which key pair was assigned, and all these details you'll find it over here. Okay. Now, if I go to the security place here, we'll have the security group. Okay. This is the security group, and this is inbound and outbound rules available here. Now, if I go to the network sections, we'll find the public IP, private IP, VPC ID, and all these details, subnet, right? And availability zone. I did not select, when I create the machine, I did not select any subnet. So what happened? Based on the system preference, it created my server in this availability zone. So how many availability zone in Asia Pacific Mumbai region?
3.
3. So what is that name?
Maybe ABC. 1AB, 1B, 1C.
1A, 1B, 1C. So AP South, AP-South -1A, AP-South 1B, and 1C. That is the availability zone code name. Okay. So the region name is AP South 1, and all the availability zone starts with A, B, C alphabetical. Okay. Now we can see all these details available here. If I go to the storage, you can find the volume ID. We'll talk about volume shortly. And what is the device name and what are the details, everything is assigned here. Okay. Now, if I go to the status checks, and here we have not added any status checks, leave it. Monitoring, we have not added anything else, monitor, and these are the default monitoring available here. Nothing has changed, nothing, because no activity has been performed so far in the server. And these are the tags. We had given only the name as demo server. We have not given anything else, right? That's all. So all these details you can go ahead and check it out. Now, I had already shown you how you can connect to this server, right? Let's copy this one. Okay. Now what I can do, if I just do SSH-I, right? Let's provide the certificate, right? And this certificate is available. What was the name? So see the names of the certificate, and it was given us weekday demo, right? So weekdaydemo.pem, and as it is an Ubuntu server, we have to use the default user ID as Ubuntu at and give the IP address here, public IP address, right? Give the public IP address. So put here. And what is the default user ID for Amazon Linux? This is a question to know whether you are listening properly or remembering the things or not. In our last class, I had created one, Amazon Linux, right? What is the default user ID for Amazon Linux?
EC2 user.
EC2, yeah.
Yeah, EC2-user. Okay, just remember these things because this you have to use in your practice. Okay, in your not only practice, in your work also, right? So I have created Ubuntu at the IP address, hit enter. Yes. Good. Now I can see here, I can able to connect to the Ubuntu machine, right? Ubuntu Linux machine. Got it? Here I have connected to the Ubuntu Linux machine. Now for Ubuntu, let me first update the operating system. Okay, for that, I have to use the Linux package manager for Ubuntu or Debian. For Ubuntu, the Linux package manager is, so we have to first do it under root user. Sudo is the root user command. So once you do sudo, that means it will act as a super user. Okay. Then we have two package managers. One is apt, another one is apt-get. Two package manager for Ubuntu. I just want to update. Either you can use apt-get or only apt also, right? Update. Okay, yes. So what it will do, it will update the operating system. Here is a question, real-time question for you. Why do you want to update the operating system?
Because of new packages to be installed, new versions.
Okay, that's true, but be careful whenever you are updating the servers. We never do in the real time. In the real time, we never do update like this without any approval, without any changes or anything in the system, in the real time, in the project, in the company, because it will damage completely all your systems, all your applications, whatever things running. It may impact all your productivity. It will impact all your applications or customers. Okay, so don't.
So for example, sir,
Yeah.
by mistake we done it. So how do we recover that?
Yes. So when you by default did it, what will happen? You have
No,
to
the default install the update.
so suppose you updated it. Okay, you should have already a backup taken of your system backup. Definitely your administrator would be taking, right? So now you have to take help of your system administrator to roll back the updates, whatever was done.
All right.
Okay.
Okay, so then need to contact with the admin people.
Admin team, admin people, only the system admin, Linux system administrator, if they would have taken the backups and all, or they would have the previous versions of the packages and all, they have to update it, because it will not, once you do by mistakenly, see here what will happen, there are almost around 40 packages updated. So
Yes.
your administrator has to now struggle what are the packages have been updated and what are the versions was previously and what are the things available now. So lots of things he has to do and to fix the issues.
Mhm.
That's the real time. Why I did it here, I updated. So guys, whenever I used the Ubuntu image, right? I used the Ubuntu image, and that Ubuntu image might have created long before, maybe 1 month before, or 1 year before, or few months before, right? That time, whatever softwares or whatever the libraries or binaries used, would have outdated now, right? Or there might have new versions of softwares might have come. As a training purpose, as just for learning purpose, I just simply updated the system and upgraded the system with the new packages. With the new packages. But you don't have to, in your company, you don't have to do it without any consultation, without any approvals, without any proper justifications and requirements. Okay, good. Now I just updated the packages.
So same case is applicable for Linux and Windows also.
Exactly. For all operating system, for all your virtual machines, not only in the Linux and the Windows, any other flavors you are using also, for everything, for Mac or whatever, you have to follow the same rules and principles. Okay. Now, so let me just, so I'll show you to install a software. Okay. I'll just show you to install a web application. Let's see how you have to do in it. So we can just use again sudo, okay, apt the package manager. We have to install Apache 2. Open, yes. So the Apache 2 is nothing but the package name of the Apache web server. Apache web server. If you're using Imagine Linux, the package name for Apache web server is, it will be HTTPD. But for Ubuntu, the package name for Apache web server is Apache 2. Okay, hit enter. Just wait for a few seconds, let it complete. So the progress 98% has been completed. Okay, so okay, done. So our Apache server has been installed now. Okay, so where it will be, so once it is installed, what we can do, we can simply check whether the Apache server is running or not. So the command for that, we can use systemctl, system control status Apache 2, the service name. Apache 2 is the sorry, spelling mistake. It is status. Okay. So we can see here it is running. Apache 2 is running. So now how I'll access this Apache server? Now I installed the Apache server on my machine, on my virtual machine, EC2 instances, right? How I'll access this server? Okay, so it's very simple. So what you have to do, you have to just simple get this IP address. Okay, go to your browser. As it is a web server, we need the web browser to access the application or the server, right? Hit enter. So we are not able to access this server now. Why? We can see here the server is active and running, but still we are not able to access this server. And remember one thing, this Apache server, the default port of Apache HTTP server, this is a HTTP server, that's hyper text transfer protocol, the server HTTP, right? So by default, the default port of HTTP server or Apache server is 80. Okay, now just correlate the things whatever I'm saying, right? If you go and check this will be timed out now. This will be timed out, okay? Because this is trying to connect with the port number 80. And the port number 80 is not whitelisted. Is not whitelisted where? In the security group. So the site cannot be reached. So if you go there in the security group, right? So let's go to the security group. This is the security group. Which security group? Our weekday demo. And here we have only port number 22 is whitelisted. The rest of the port is not whitelisted. All are blacklisted. Okay. All the ports cannot be connected to the server. Through other ports, we cannot connect to the server. This is the server IP address. We cannot connect to the server. Only the port number 22 by using the SSH protocol. So when I connected to this server, I used SSH protocol to connect, right? I used SSH protocol to connect. See, I used SSH. The port number for SSH is 22. So what is the port number for HTTP? The port number for HTTP is 80. Okay. So how I'll fix that one? So through SSH, I am able to connect, but through port number 80, we are not able to connect. So how we'll fix it? So what we have to do? We have to edit the inbound rule. We have to edit the inbound rule. Just go ahead. Okay. And add a new rule. So we have the real rule is 22 is already whitelisted. Add a new rule, and you have to select here. Either you can go with custom TCP and put port number 80, right? Or else you can select the protocol. What is the protocol name? Is HTTP, not HTTPS. Don't select HTTPS. Only select HTTP, right? So where it is HTTP, right? So when you select HTTP here, you can see here, automatically the port 80 been taken and it is grayed out. And here, once it is taken, in the security group, you have to provide the IP address. So from which IP address do you want your server to be connected with the port number 80? You have to provide that server IP address. And if I select this, what is this means? Anywhere, anyone can connect through port number 80. And this means it is entirely visible to public. Anyone can connect your server. If they have your user ID and password, they can connect your server by using 80. If you want to specify a specific server, then you have to provide the IP address name here. IP address name, the range, which IP address do you want to connect from? Okay. Now let me give us public. Now save the
So this port number 80.
Yeah.
Is it same for irrespective of the operating system?
Yes, it is not for operating system dependent, because it is the default port of HTTP server. It is the default port of HTTP protocol. You have to remember this. You may get questions also. So it is the default port of the HTTP server. So HTTP server, whether you install in Windows or install in Mac or install in Linux, the port number will be same, 80.
Same.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah. So now I provided whitelisted the port number 80 now. 80, right? Now if what I do, just refresh this. See, I can see my Apache server is now active, right? Apache server is now active. So this is how you have to work on this. And this is the default page of your Apache server. If you want to deploy your application, how would you do that? Right? So this particular file, if you see here, the default documented path, if you see here, it is written here. It will be under cd var www/html. If I go to this particular home directory, root directory of the HTTP server, Apache server, will have this index.html file. Okay, let me modify this file with our own applications. Right? What I do here, let me remove everything here. Right? And I think it will not work because I should have make it as under root sudo UI index.html. Let me delete everything and create one file quickly. Okay. Now what I'll do here, I'll just write some HTML code to make you to show you how it works. Okay. Center. Give some h1 tag here. Okay. Cloud, something like this. I gave h1 and I type here like one more space, one more line here. Okay, and I'll give one color h2. Welcome to the cloud. Okay, something like this. I wrote it here. Plus h2. Okay, so this is my application now. It could be your complete website. You can host it here. Complete website. Okay, you can host your complete website. Now let's save this index.html. I just modified the index.html file, right? If I refresh this, our application will be there. Our website will be hosted now. So you can see here, whatever I think in the HTML file I added, everything will be visible now, right? So this is how you have to install a software and work around and deploy an applications into the Linux server and work around it. Okay, so we are good with the Linux servers. Any doubt or anything you need to discuss, guys? Now I'll go with Windows Server. All clear with, there are lots of things, right? Don't think that we finished it yet. We just covered 5%, still 95% are pending. We have to go slowly. All the classes, right? All the time we have to create the servers and servers only. Any services we use, it is directly or indirectly will be linked to the servers. Okay, so we have to work on that. So this is how we have to work on this, right? You are good with the security groups and now you understand how to do that. Okay, now if I, so, okay guys, even though if you just type this port number in your side, right, just type it 13.127.217.97. In your laptop, you can also able to view this application because it is now in the world, anyone can type this one particular IP address and can able to see the applications. Okay, there are lots of things at the end of these cloud classes. Definitely you will be a master in handling the cloud and deploying applications and working on your applications and at least know how it works. Okay, that's good. Fine. Now let's terminate this machine. Let's terminate this machine. Okay, so if you see here in the dashboard, if I go here, I have if I go to the instances, I have 2 servers. Now I have one is stopped and another one is running. Okay, so when I selected and created, we added, okay, let me first terminate this and we'll talk about some EBS systems and then we'll move into the Windows Server and all. Okay, let me terminate. So while you select it, if you say when select it, if you go here terminate, right? If I do terminate, it will immediately get terminated. It will get immediately terminated. Sometimes what happens accidentally, if you're administrator, if you're cloud administrator, right, accidentally select it and just went and terminated it, what will happen? It will completely get terminated. If it is a very critical server, if your server is very having the critical applications in it, if you terminate it, it will be a big impact to your company, to your customers, right, to your application. So what will happen? We can protect it by accidentally deletion. So we have a deletion protection plan also. So you select it. We have, see, I have not gone through all this. We'll go through slowly, okay? Lots of things are there. So already 1 hour completed. I have done I'm going actually very slowly and explaining everything. In this rate, if I go, then it will take 6 months of more than enough time. So I have to little fast forward, okay? So that why initially I'm making you to make comfortable with that to understand, and then I'll move fast forward. Otherwise, I cannot complete it within 3 months, okay? It will take lots of time to complete entirely cloud, okay? There are lots of things also I'll take you once we move forward and work on different services and servers, we'll talk about all these things. So we have change stop protection and termination protection, right? I was talking about. And these things also you can select while creating the server. I did not show you while creating the server. I'll show you when I create a Windows server and all, okay, that time. But even though if you created, you want to change the termination protection. So what is the termination protection? It is being used for, if I do enable, you cannot delete the server. It will not allow you to terminate the server. However, you can stop it, but you cannot delete the server. So what it says, to prevent your instance from being accidentally terminated. It's very useful options, okay? For critical, mission critical applications, normally we used to enable it. So what is mission critical application? Anyone having any ideas? What is mission critical application? See, these words actually will be real time. Whenever we go to the market, in the software market, we will come to know. When we start working, we will come to know all these things. The mission critical applications, the applications which is very critical, like your database applications, your trading applications, which is very critical. If milliseconds of delay or slowness, it will impact thousands of crores of rupees, right? Or millions of dollars, or whatever things you deal with, everything will be impacted. So those kind of mission critical applications, if you delete by mistakenly, what will happen? You are gone. Your company will be gone, right? So be careful. That's why we have options for selecting that one. So there are many other in actions. There are many other things. I would advise you go through this and get your time to do R&D on this, because if I go each and everything, it will take me lots of time to complete. So go slowly, and most of the things also will cover slowly one after another. Okay. Now let me.
What about the unwanted servers when we add the termination protection initially, and if our manager said to terminate the when it is included the protection, so how do we do that? Unwanted instance.
Okay.
So if we wanted to terminate that and it's the protection is enabled,
you have to disable it, then you have to terminate it, right?
Disable and terminate.
Yes, you have to disable it and terminate. Normally, if unwanted and the server which you think have created for temporarily, you never we normally don't enable it, right? We don't enable the termination protections. Once you finish your work, you terminate it. So even though it is added, the termination protection is enabled, you can disable it and then terminate it.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, then now select it and then go ahead and terminate the instance. Okay, this is how. Now let's move on and think about when we created, we talked about the elastic block storage, right? EBS. So what are those elastic block storage, right? Let me just go through this elastic block storage and all. Okay. What is this? Okay. So we have talked about EC2 instances and all, right? Types and all. Now let's talk, what is the EBS? The emergent elastic block store allows you to create storage volumes and attach them to, let me maximize this, attach them to EC2 instances. Once attached, you can create a file system on top of these run a database, or use them in any other way, you would be use a block device. Imagine EBS volumes are placed in a specific availability zone where they are automatically replicated to protect you from the failure of a single component. This is a very good point. Imagine EBS volumes are placed in a specific availability zone where they are automatically replicated to protect you from the failure of a single component. That means the EBS volume, okay, in the real, not in the real time, in normally whatever you work, think about your laptop, you are working, you have a hard disk attached into that, right? And your hard disk is the default hard disk or the root drive. And whenever you do formatting, right? Whenever you do partition, what do? You keep the root drive as suppose C drive. What you do in that drive, you have only one hard disk, but in that hard disk, you have do some various partitions. In that various partitions, suppose you have created 3 partitions, one for C, D, E. C you kept for your root drive where you have installed your operating systems and the rest of the things and all, and you have kept DE for other purposes. And sometimes you might have seen, like we used to attach the external hard disk, external hard drive, right, to your laptop to add extra volume, to add extra storage. Sometimes we use that and to install operating system, to install any software also. Same concept here for elastic block storage, which you need whenever is the extra volume you need or any extra storage or volume to be added to your virtual server or virtual machines. Okay, that time you have to be very careful and use it. Okay, so what is this EBS volume types? We have general purpose SSD, GPU. General purpose balances both performance and, okay, I'll just talk you all these things. Okay, general purpose balance and all provisioned IOPS. Okay, and we have throughput optimized, we have cold SSD, we have magnetic standard. All these type of EBS volumes available. We'll talk about more in details when we use these EBS volumes. Okay, don't worry about that at all. So what is the, when you should go for general purpose, when you should go for provisioned. Okay, let me just tell you some basics here. So general purpose balances both price and performance. The ratio of 3 IOPS. IOPS means input output per second per GB, up to 10,000 IOPS, from 3 IOPS to 10,000 IOPS, and the ability to burst up to 3,000 IOPS for extended periods of time for the volumes of 3,334 GB and above. So the input outputs per seconds, how many, how frequently, or what is the latency, or what is the number of times you can do the input output, means read and write to your disk. Read and write or disk. Based on the performance, you have to select the volumes, right? Based on that ratio per GB. And provisioned IOPS. See, SSD is solid state drive, right? It does not provide, it provides SSD also, but these are SSD, solid state drive, right? Normally nowadays all laptops and desktops are, everything are coming SSD only. They don't have SSD nowadays, or everyone using SSD only, right? So provisioned IOPS is designed for input-output intensive applications, such as large relational or NoSQL databases. So intensive or critical applications is the databases, right? It's designed for input-output. So provisioned IOPS use if need more than 10,000 IOPS. So for if you're going to in between 10,000 IOPS, you should go with general purpose. If you need more than 10,000 IOPS, suppose you have a trading applications or some applications which have a databases in that particular volume, you should go with provisioned IOPS. Can provision up to 20,000 IOPS per volumes. We'll get more details in hand once we do practice, okay? Then we have this throughput optimized STDD, hard disk drive. When to use? For big data, data warehouse, log processing. Okay, and remember, this cannot be a boot volume. What is a boot volume? The volume which can be a bootable, where you can install the operating systems, right? That volume will be a bootable volume. And this volume, throughput optimized, cannot be act as a bootable volume. Okay. Cold storage, lowest cost storage for infrequently accessed workloads, file servers, cannot be a boot volume again. So cold STD means infrequently accessed. That means you don't access the servers very frequently. You access the server whenever is required. So monthly once there is a requirement, or in a 6 months there is a requirement, or weekly once, whatever it is. You don't have to go for provision, right? You don't have to go for general purpose. Why unnecessary you pay for this? Instead, you go for cold SDD, which you have to pay very less amount, very cost. That's why it gives lowest cost storage. Another one is the magnetic standard. You might have heard about the floppy drive, right? The floppy drive, it was actually a magnetic drive, right? It has a magnetic film inside the floppy, and we used to write the data inside it, right? That's kind of the magnetic storage also it provides. So those magnetic storage, EBS volume types, that is bootable, and magnetic volumes are ideal for workloads where data is accessed again infrequently and applications where low storage cost is important. So you can make use of this storage based on your
So how do you differentiate like those kind of facilities given by Amazon, for example, Glacier and EBS? So you mentioned that low cold HDD, you said infrequent access workloads, and
Yeah.
they have a facility of Glacier as well in
Yeah,
other part. So how do you differentiate this, please?
Okay. So what is a Glacier?
Is it database storage where we can access the files not frequent,
Okay.
where we can store it?
Okay. So where you have heard about this Glacier? Which
Online.
service? Which services? I'm not obviously online, but which services of AWS?
Amazon, AWS.
Okay. In AWS, there are more than 100 services, like 500 services, more than
Right.
500 services. Which,
Yes.
in which services, like in EBS, like in EC2 services, you heard about cold SDD, right? You heard about magnetic. You
Yes.
heard about the like throughput optimized. Similarly, Glacier, where did you hear about? It is again in the storage service that is called simple storage service, that is called S3. You heard about in S3, right? So exactly, you have perfectly find it out and perfectly remembered these things. That's very good that you have remembered. So that Glacier is infrequently accessed, but that is for a different purpose. That is for a different purpose. That is for a storage alone. That is for storage purpose. And these are volumes which could be storage as well as bootable device. So simple storage and bootable device is totally different. That means you are in EBS. So also in interviews or in real-time examinations also, what type of storage is available in Amazon Web Services? We have S3 is a storage service. We have EBS, it is a storage service. But there's a difference between EBS and S3. EBS actually, we get the storage with the bootable options. But in S3, we only have the storage options that we cannot install anything there. Only you can store. Okay, let's talk about the Glacier. Obviously, it will not be good to mix the things, that service and here. But what if Kumar has asked me, the Glacier is something which is infrequently accessed. Let me tell you about a real-time example. When you should go for magnetic or infrequently accessed and glacier infrequently accessed. Both are infrequently accessed. That means the things which you don't need immediately in 1 week of time or 6 months of time or 1 month of time, whenever is required, you will access it. That means infrequently accessed, right? We don't need immediately. In EBS, we have this magnetic standard. This is a lowest cost per price, which is a bootable. That means you can install applications here. Magnetic volumes are ideal for workloads where data is accessed infrequently. Let me give you an example. If you have an application, suppose applications you like the application, suppose mutual fund or kind of SIP. So think about one SIP applications which you don't need to log in very frequently. That means monthly once you used to log in that application, or you need the data to be visible monthly once or by 6 months. So what do you have to do? All these informations you can keep it in the magnetic standard. That means all the data or storage or the applications you can access monthly once. Why unnecessary you have to pay more? So keep it in the magnetic. But if you go with Glacier, you can only store the data there. Only store the data. You cannot install the applications. So what kind of data?
Which is not in frequent use.
Infrequent, like some example, whoever have worked in banking sector or who have knowledge on banking, whenever you go to collect bank statement, if you have selected for some date range, 1 week or 1 month, or even 6 months, you will get it immediately.
Transactional data.
Exactly. The transactional data you will get immediately. And if you request for old data, like 5 years old or 10 years old, they will not give you immediately. They'll tell you, wait for a few hours or few days, right? Few hours or few days. So what they do, those data they store in Glacier.
So you mean to say this this is for the web application purpose. To access the magnet standard is to access for the web application or for the installation purpose.
You can say like this, yeah, the web application, if your web application is not accessed very frequently, then yes, you can use that one, right? If you have application is not accessed frequently, then you can go with magnetic.
All right. Thank you.
Got it? Okay. And if you have storage, all the records, all the transaction records, whatever I was telling, if your banking transaction you have requested for 1 year of data or 10 years of data, what they do, they would have kept those data in a storage device which is infrequently accessed. Suppose Glacier, where you have to pay very less amount for that. And your bank will say you, wait for, like it will take 24 hours or 48 hours of time to get your bills or get your statements. So what they do, they just connect to the server. Their application will be installed somewhere else. They'll just get that from that Glacier and deliver to you. Okay, that's why they give a time period. So whenever you fetch some records from the Glacier, it takes some amount of time to retrieve the data. So when we study, learn the storage, S3 storage, that time we'll discuss further on this Glacier and other different storages. And these storage types, whatever we saw in EBS, the volume types will not be there in the S3 storage. Okay, that is totally different. We'll talk about later after this EC2 is completed. All right. Okay.
Thank you.
So guys, we learned lots of things today related to EBS and all. So in our tomorrow also we'll have the same time classes, and I'll just try to finish it very quickly, and we'll go with Windows Server creations. Okay, tomorrow we'll go with Windows Server creation, and I'll show you how we can create the Windows servers with other different topics and all. So EBS will finish it for today, and from upcoming classes we'll talk about, again we'll come to EBS volumes. We have different volumes, we have snapshots, we have image creations, lots of things are there. We slowly learn those things. Okay, and then after this compute classes is over, we'll talk about the IAM service, which is most important also, like identity access management, how we provide access and services, security and all. Then we'll talk about the S3 storage. These three actually most important and very frequently used in AWS. Okay, we have to learn it. So that's all, guys, for today's class. We'll meet up tomorrow.